Hi, Jenny.
Hello, Joey.
Um, this movie is mind-boggling. I
Mhm.
watched it again last night and I was like, how the hell am I going to talk to Jenny Beaven about the costume? Because every single damn piece of fabric, I could probably ask you like 20 questions about. Um, so I guess the thing that I want to ask you first is I think it's so interesting that it is um, a movie about costume design and expressing yourself through clothes. Cruella even has a line that says, when she's a child, that little peak blew my mind. I felt like I belonged. And I was wondering when that moment was for you.
Well, in absolute truth, Joey, and I don't want to disappoint you, I'm not actually that interested in fashion or clothes. What I really love doing is telling stories with them. And
Yeah.
when I grew up, I wanted to be a set designer in theatre, not a
Okay.
costume designer in film. And I mean, it's all the same thing, though. You're creating the world.
Mhm.
And but I do it totally from the storytelling aspect. So if it's 1970s fashion and you've got the story of Estella becoming Cruella and working with the Baroness, I just slot into that. And
Okay.
um, but I wouldn't say I had an epiphany moment.
Okay.
I simply now, I mean, I started as a set designer. I worked in opera, ballet, and I did the costumes as well. But basically, I wanted to create the space that
Mhm.
created the world. And then I happened to get to know Merchant Ivory through a friend, and that's another story. But
Mhm.
and they sort of assumed I was a costume designer. And immediately, for the first film I worked with them, I happened upon them by accident and did everything from crowd collecting to acting in it. And the second film, they asked me to be assistant to their costume designer. They just assumed I was a costume designer. And so I became a costume designer. And
Oh,
in a way, there I was rather enjoying it.
yeah.
It
The
wasn't my
craziness of life.
intention.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's funny that you say that because I always say, like, I have no style whatsoever. I can maybe match some colors, and I'm not audacious or bold or anything with the clothes that I put on my body, but I love talking to costume designers because I feel like, you can tell so much story through like a choice of color or the silhouette of something. So
Yeah, yeah,
um okay.
absolutely.
um I guess the kind of first piece that I want to ask you about is because she is so young and we see her fashion sense already blooming. Young Cruella, when she is at school before she is Cruella, I was really drawn to that maroon blazer, and I love all
Mm.
the safety pins, and I love all the buttons that sort of hide the shape of the lapel.
Mm.
What can you tell me about that piece, since it's such like a spark for such a young person?
Well, we were just trying to give it a reality. And in fact, originally in the script, the toddler Cruella puts on clothes from her mother's work basket. And I did do that costume on a mannequin because
Hmm.
I thought it was really important to see what even the toddler was doing. And I
Okay.
absolutely loved that costume, but we never shot that. I think working with toddlers is pretty tricky. And then we moved on to the sort of medium one. And then the one who sort of tells her mother that isn't the way to make things. And then when we got to the school thing, school uniform is very big in England, and she's
Hmm.
obviously been sent to this good private school, and would wear a uniform, but would customize it the minute she could. So at the beginning,
Yeah.
she turns it inside out, and she's obviously graffitied all over the lining, and then
Hmm.
she starts to add to it with whatever she can find. And we know her mother does mending and ironing and stuff, or that is the assumption in the script, so that there's stuff she can work with, and safety pins are fairly useful and universal, and obviously then become quite a punk theme later on
Yeah.
in real the real world.
Hmm.
So that was also based on my assistant Sarah Young, whose sister Emma apparently was very anarchic at school and used to do things like that. So we used lots of reference from my past, everybody's past, and stories and stuff to give it a reality. And that
Yeah.
was a really fun item, I thought, that
Hmm.
blaze.
Yeah. I never went to like a private school or anything, but I always sort of I was like, I would kind of want to have a uniform and try to like make it my own. So I love that piece. Um, I gotta ask about, the Baroness's couture in a general sense. I love how there's always a piece on Emma Thompson's body that is incredibly exaggerated. I love how there is like, a cape, or there is always maybe like a high neckline. There's something about her that I find grand and guarded in her clothing. She views herself sort of as an untouchable person. And I was wondering, just approaching the character of the Baroness and having such an amazing person like Emma Thompson, who you've worked with so many times, how did you want to make her this like grand dame, I guess, of fashion?
So you frozen slightly.
Oh, sorry.
How did you want? Can you just say that again? Because I couldn't hear.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to know, like, in the approach initially, how did you sort of want to make her this like grande dame of the fashion world?
Well, I mean, again, in the script, you get the sense that although she is a really good fashion designer, I mean, really good, she is slightly past her sell-by date, slightly old-fashioned. And so I look very much at sort of Dior and very, very classy looking. I mean, I looked at so many bits of fashion, of the period and slightly earlier to get inspiration. And then Jane Law, who's the costume maker who made all Emma Thompson's Baroness outfits, is just one of the cleverest cutters in the world. You will have seen loads of her work in many, many top class Hollywood movies. She makes loads for Meryl Streep and whoever. But so Jane, and I've worked with her a lot, we sort of devised a look that then we took up to fit on Emma, just in simple black shapes, black toiles. And from that first fitting, we got the sense of where this woman is going to go. And Emma's got a fantastic body. And she's very real, it's not stupidly thin and all that. So she's actually glorious to mold into a shape. And we did put a corset on her, as Dior put into all his, waisted dresses. So there was a little homage to Dior there, but there was something about the asymmetry and using fabric that had real body to it, so you could get that sculptural look, that
structure,
exactly, but also giving her a very, very cohesive look. Because something that's always struck me in films about fashion, or films where clothes sometimes they don't follow through and they don't look like one person's inspiration. And I was very conscious that I wanted to make sure that not only her, but also her workroom and the stuff she was producing had a look, a Baroness look. So we found it. I mean, and once you started, it then became like, okay, so what can we do this time? And somehow we don't draw it, we do it on the stand. So it's real and it's 3D from the word go. Me and Jane, we drape in the old-fashioned sense. And I think that, but once you've sort of found the key to it, you can then go off and improvise on that theme. And that's how she sort of developed using, I mean, I had tons, some of those fabrics were stupidly cheap and some of them were really expensive. So it's just finding, what works, but definitely most of them have real structure to them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess if Dior is a real inspiration for the Baroness, I'm curious what an inspiration is for Cruella, just because like there's that montage in the movie where she just pops up and she's wearing this like insane, garbage dress, or she's wearing that Dalmatian dress. The silhouette of that Dalmatian dress that's my favorite one. I cannot wait to see like drag queens aplenty in all of these costumes when it happens. I guess what would you think is Cruella's biggest inspiration, or if Dior's one for the Baroness looks?
At the beginning, I would say it would have been the fact that she put together stuff from vintage stores. So what she was looking at, Nina Hagen was the very first image Craig Gillespie came up with, and I found independently, and it's like, oh look, it has to be, because there's something there's just something about Nina Hagen that's so 70s or 60s, 70s, and so early Cruella-ish or Estella-ish, once she's become part of the boys in that terrible squat of an attic of a den, you know. So she probably was looking at the Nina Hagens of this world, and then she was probably, you know, going to places like obviously Artie's vintage store in Portobello, which I was going to in the 70s, and you know, and looking and putting stuff together in a really eclectic way, which we all did. The whole thing of the military juxtaposed with a soft petally skirt was something we all did, or we wore the military with jeans, but often the long lace-up boots. Olaf daughters, not necessarily Doc Martens, although Doc Martens were around. And then as we go on, I'm assuming she's learning a lot of skills from the Baroness, working in that workroom, and refining her taste in her own way until we get to the end, where my assumption is that if you really put quite a lot of imagination into it, she could become Glenn Close in the 1990s. it's a long, you know, but there had to be just something that said this almost could be
oh my God. I love that. Yeah, there's something about, you know, when I rewatched it, I liked how whenever she was in the workshop, she was wearing like black. Yeah. And I was wondering, I was like, ooh, maybe she's like trying to go under the radar, but she's also just learning what is very chic and sort of, you know, Cruella has a very big, grandiose, over the top presentation to all of her outfits, but when she's like working on things at work and she's trying to like hide out a little bit, she's plainer, I guess.
No, absolutely. I think she really, I mean, before she realizes who the Baroness is and what she's done, she really thinks she's going to learn a lot and become a fashion designer. She's completely honest in there. And there was something I felt that was very good to being very monochromatic in there, because obviously all the, you know, it's absolute tradition that all the sewers and people wear white coats. That's absolutely done in every fashion house and has been certainly in the 70s, certainly in the 50s. So that, and somehow you didn't want to see colour. I mean, why would you? You know, and she is sort of, she's genuinely thinks, I think, terribly excited to work with the Baroness and thinks, make it. So until you know, the horror of the seeing the thing around her neck is revealed, and then realizing the whole story. Yeah, she's just under the radar and but still slightly quirky in her silhouette, but yeah, I mean, kind of what I sort of wanted to look like in those days too.
Yeah, there's like an earnestness that I don't think is ever lost. Like she is so excited to, you know, work there and be in that space. Before she even realizes how dark and twisted it all really is. Like that's really her dream. So while she is, you know, plotting at the same time, she is, you know, learning how to hone her craft that she loves so much. Like, kind of quickly, what is the signature piece dress made out of?
Which one do you call the signature piece?
The one that the Baroness calls the one that she designs and all the moths fly out of it.
So that's actually an absolute truth. It's a visual effect. What we did was we made the shape. Dominic Young cut the beautiful shape, which was done in, I think we ended up doing it in a sort of goldy, I can't remember, because sometimes visual effects want it just white or black or whatever. And then we got the chrysalises, and we actually showed the piece that she's working on. So there was a piece for the visual effects to photograph and then use as they do. But the actual dress was then, we did not sew every chrysalis on. Absolutely brilliantly, because you obviously didn't realize. They'll be very pleased.
Yeah, okay, that makes total sense. I guess one last question before I let you go. My favorite thing to ask costume designers is, out of your own designs for the movie, what would you want to take for yourself? I love the first outfit that we see already in with like the black lace sleeves.
Oh,
Like way more fabulous than I can ever dream to be in my entire life. And he also wears this like blue maroonish like leather jacket like when he comes to their apartment that I am in love with. What would you want to take for yourself?
I'll be honest, nothing. I don't want anything. I don't keep anything. I don't have any fabric. Well, only fabrics here. I've got an ethnic pieces making cushions and things. I have, the only thing I ever want from a film is the DVD, the final thing. And when I go to markets for myself, I collect pottery, particularly 18th century glassware. I'm rather like early painting, not at all, not more primitive sort of painting, folk art. I mean, I came back from Hungary with the most ludicrous amount of hand embroidered cushion covers, which I have no idea what I'm going to do with, and loads of hand painted pottery. I really don't want anything from a film. That's all to do with the film. And if I get beautiful piece of fabric, lace, what have you, my wonderful friend Bright, who owns Cosprop, the costume house in London I use all the time, I just give it to him and then it can have another life. I don't want it hanging around here getting moth. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, not one thing, thank you.
I
disappoint.
No, I love that. I mean, I should maybe just ask you what kind of set piece you would want to steal instead, because you are so into set design, which the set design of this movie too is also insane.
Beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. Yes, I'm much more likely to go around nicking bits of set deck than I am.
Like, can find you like stealing a couch or something, just like dragging.
Yeah, much more likely to steal.
Okay.
Yeah, so that they have to keep their eye on, but a piece of clothing, no interest.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Jenny, thank you so much for your time. This movie is, I saw it, once in the theaters and I watched it at home and it was just mind-boggling. It's so beautiful and stunning. So I thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's very nice.
Stay safe. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.